dominated by digital screens and instant gratification, there's an increasing divide in our human connections and difficulties expressing our vulnerabilities. Letters to My podcast explores the tapestries of storytelling by transforming written letters into spoken word. Hello and welcome. Hi, everyone from Letters to My podcast. My name is Sai. I am your host. Today, we have Kou here, who's going to be sharing his experience, his journey, and just reading his letter. Kou, how you doing? Can you introduce yourself to us?
Good. Thank you so much for having me here today, Sai. My name is Kou Thao, Kou Thao. I am originally from Pennsylvania. I moved all over the country. My father's name is Thao, and my parents currently live in South Carolina, and I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah, welcome. I appreciate you coming here. Kou, and listening, I just want to tell you all a little bit how Kou and I know each other. We're both social workers. And I remember as a young social worker, I saw Kou being involved in public policy and government in Minnesota, or Twin Cities. And it just inspired me because I didn't see a lot of representation as social worker. I was an Asian male, and I was just inspired by the work he did because it showed me that I can do this too as well. So thank you so much for being a mentor and just inspiring me, Kou.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So listeners, I wanted to read Kou's bio. Kou Thao is a queer, indigenous Hmong writer and cosmic shaman. His healing practice integrates quantum energy healing, breathwork, and meditation to accelerate the evolution of leaders into the best version of themselves. Kou leverages 20 years of spiritual study around the world and leading system change across sectors to create a unique healing practice dedicated to helping leaders evolve into the best version of themselves. He is a 2024 PEN America Emerging Voice Fellow, 2017 Aspen InstituteIdeas Festival Fellow, 2014 White House Champion of Change, and 2013 BushFoundation Fellow. Kou holds a Master in Psychology from St. Joseph University and a Master of Social Work from the University of Chicago. You can find him swimming, meditating, or hugging a tree somewhere. Kou, I think that's hilarious. Thank you for joining. Kou, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the podcast, Letter to My podcast. Vì lý do có sẵn join, or what made you want to join, and what was your thought of the podcast?
Yeah, well, I think a little over a year ago is when you first told me that you were launching this. And I remember hearing about it and hearing you talk about it in such an intentional and nuanced way to really try to get to the multiple perspectives that individuals bring from the Hmong community to really shed light on all the different facets of the diaspora. And I think that's what really drew me to it and wanted to be a part of it.
Exactly. Kou, can you explain to people what diaspora means?
So the way I think about it is, particularly for Hmong who don't have a homeland, who are indigenous, diaspora is Hmong who have been scattered across the world. So whether we're Hmong American or Hmong Thai or Hmong Blah or, Hmong Yala, we all come from the Hmong diaspora. And so I identify with Hmong regardless of nationality because of the diaspora.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also when you're not from your country or place of origin too, and you're handling those lived experience. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that, Kou. Well, I believe the guest and I'm really excited to listen to your letter. Before we listen to your letter, can you tell me who the person is and why you dedicated to that special person?
I dedicated this to my younger self. And a lot of people know me as Bruce, which is my first legal name. I started going by my Hmong name Kou in 2019. So kind of depending on when you knew me, you know me by different names. And so I dedicated this letter to little Bruce and little Kou.
That's wonderful. Well, Kou, we're ready whenever you are.
Here's my letter. I dedicate this letter to my younger self, to little Bruce, to little Kou. to remind you that we are worthy of love, dignity, and compassion. In my past, I was the first Hmong boy born in New Jersey, the first of my family born in the US after a war only spoken of in secrets. My parents did not want me to know what tragedies they endured to get here. They just wanted me to start over, start fresh. A seed carried on the wind and planted in America, watered with hopes and dreams for a new beginning. Mom and Dad wanted me to be a doctor, marry a beautiful Hmong ya, and carry on our Thao clan legacy as a leader in our church. I did not know how to make Mom and Dad's dreams come true without destroying myself. I didn't know how to turn nightmares of war into American dreams, but I tried so hard. I really did. I tried so hard to be straight, to be the perfect Christian, the perfect son, to finish my PhD, but it cost me so much. I drowned myself in alcohol to numb the voices telling me I was not good enough. The church telling me I was going to hell and that God does not love me. My parents telling me to sacrifice everything for our family. I tried so hard until the depression, the loneliness, the alcohol almost killed me. I lived my life for others, but I didn't know what it meant to live for myself, for my peace, for my happiness. In the present, I am no longer the little boy who grew up in cornfields, scared to be himself. I am now a proud, queer Hmong writer, artist, and shaman. I do not know or practice traditional Hmong shamanism. My spiritual journey to accept and understand my gifts has been a puzzle to solve all my life. But I am now in a place where I know who I am and why I am here on earth. Here are some of the things that saved me. First is community. I found other queer monk folks. I found other queer Christians. I found other kooky, wacky artists and healers and creatives who made me feel like I was not alone in this world. In many ways, community saved me. Another thing that saved me is meditation. Through learning to meditate, I was finally able to quiet the voices in my head and listen to my heart. From the heart space, the voices of my ancestors emerged, reminding me that I am deeply loved, deeply cared for, and that I'm not evil for being gay. Another thing that saved me was quitting alcohol. I never considered myself an alcoholic compared to a lot of my friends. I didn't drink as much as them. I started drinking at 15, which I think is common for a lot of Hmong folks. In the Hmong community and in the queer community, alcohol flowed like water fountains. Alcohol was there for me through heartache, through grueling academic programs, through depression, coming out to my parents over and over again. Alcohol soothed the pain of being a workaholic, sacrificing myself for others. One day I realized I was in an abusive relationship with alcohol. The only healthy way forward was to stop drinking forever. So no longer will I allow that poison to touch my lips. My future aspiration is to publish my book, which is a memoir about growing up in rural Amish country as a queer Hmong boy, battling alcohol and self-hatred to try to heal generations of trauma. My book is a love letter to the Hmong community in many ways. It is a love letter to my parents, and it is a love letter to you, little Kou. My hope is that every Hmong person who reads my book can see a part of themselves in my story, in our story of what it is to be Hmong, both the struggle and the joy, the sacrifices and the solidarity. I hope my book is a mirror, reminding my readers that even when surrounded by the darkness of great despair, there is a light that guides us back home to ourselves, that peace is possible even after generations of war, and that the freedom Hmong have always longed for is at our fingertips. Some wisdom that I wish to share with you is that I tried to be perfect my whole life. I was an overachiever, a people pleaser. I was so afraid of disappointing my parents, of ruining their American dreams. But it wasn't until my 30s and 40s that I finally reclaimed my soul. I took my life into my own hands and asked myself, what do I want? What makes me happy? That moment was a turning point, and now I am safe. Now I'm happy. Now I have a home filled with family and love. I do not worry about having enough food or water. I have found peace in my heart. And through all of this, I realized I have already achieved my ancestors' wildest dreams. So, little Kou, if I leave you with anything, it is to trust that your heart will guide you through this life. Have fun along the way. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. The more you can love yourself, accept yourself and your own weirdness, the better life gets. Remember that dark days will always be followed by the sun. Shine your light, my love. Shine it bright. It is what will guide you back home to yourself whenever you feel lost. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Wow. What a love letter. What a reflection. What a good insight to yourself, Gu. That's very powerful. I think some insights I just had from that is just how we are self destructive, how we numb ourselves. I appreciate one of the words that you said, how do you transition? How can I do transition from nightmare of war into the American dream? How difficult that is, and living up to our parents' expectation, which we'll talk more, and being empowering yourself that being queer is not evil, and that definitely is something in our community and many immigrant refugee communities, so we don't accept that. What people don't know, queer has been around for generations, and I see the parallelism, I see the connective human thread that you focus on, and this escape from self-imprisonment. So good job. How was it writing you?
You know, it's interesting. I think the hardest part was the idea of writing the letter. I put it
Yeah.
off for a long time because I didn't
Mm.
know what I wanted to write. But then when I actually sat down to write, it came out very easily. And it came out very simply. And I think that's a large part of that is because I finished my book and I've already done so much deep reflection. That really helped me to figure out
Yeah.
what I wanted to
I think
say.
that's really good. Oftentimes, some of the guests I have, folks haven't written themselves a letter in a while. So I'm glad that you've done the deep work because it allows you to just process all these emotions that we're going to dive into. So we're going to jump into the past experience of your experiences that kind of shape you who you were. So cool. Fun fact about you is that I was reading that you're the first Hmong person born in New Jersey. That's amazing. So, so you're special. Dr. Dia Cha was on the podcast, and she's the first Hmong woman to get her master's degree. So, whoa, look at you. So cool. I want to hear about, because I'm from Minnesota / Twin Cities, so my experience is different from yours because we are surrounded by Hmong people. Tell me about you, because if you're from there, or you're from the farms or the city and so forth.
Yeah, it was really interesting growing up in New Jersey. We kind of went back and forth between kind of suburban and rural areas. Back then New Jersey was where we were was also very rural, but growing up I always thought of it as suburban because it was very diverse. We had a lot of different races, ethnicities, but there was no Hmong people except for me and a few of my cousins that lived together in this small town in central New Jersey. But we were about maybe an hour outside of New York City. And the closest Hmong community was a small Hmong church in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where the Amish are, where we eventually moved. But growing up, essentially, my dad wanted us to master English, and he didn't want us to speak Hmong. So we did not speak Hmong at home. My dad never spoke to us in Hmong. Only my mom spoke to us in Hmong, but we would answer in English. So it wasn't until 7th grade that I actually moved to a small Hmong community in Pennsylvania. And then I finished high school there.
Nice. Okay. No, that experience definitely shaped you. Did you yearn for connection, or did you understand what it meant to be Hmong in America at that time? And what expectations did your parents push on you?
As a kid, I never yearned to be Hmong. I didn't know what that meant. I loved being with my cousins. On the East Coast, all like East Coast Hmong kind of know each other because it's such a small community. So we grew up going to like the Rhode Island New Year, and there's like a North Carolina New Year. So we would all visit each other on the East Coast, but it wasn't really until maybe my teenage years that I really wanted to understand what it was like to be Hmong. But as a kid, like elementary school, middle school, I just wanted to be white.
Okay.
I wanted to be American. You know, this is the 80s, so there's no Asians on TV. It's still very racist, and I
Yeah,
just wanted to fit in.
absolutely. How did you deal with, I guess, generational trauma or coming being born of children immigrants who were war-torn country? How did that affected you? Because you have a different experience. Most people your age aren't born in America at this time. So how was that experience for you?
You know, in my book, I talk about this a lot because my upbringing was very unique. My family, they
Mhm,
came very early. They came in 76. So right after the war, because my uncle worked for the
mhm,
CIA, he was a lieutenant and he
mhm,
did interpreting. He and my dad both spoke 5
mm,
languages, including French and some English. But my dad was a teacher, so he wasn't required
mhm.
to go into the war. But because of my uncle, we were able to get out early into the refugee camps. And so 1983, when I was born in New Jersey, I'd say, you know, they were still struggling, but they had already been there
Mhm,
in America for almost 10 years. So when I grew up in the 90s, we were middle class. I didn't grow up in poverty. My
mhm.
siblings grew up on food stamps and poverty, but my younger sister and I did not. So we had a very, I would say, typical middle class Asian American upbringing. And I've never read a book about that. All the books that I've read from Hmong authors are about the migration, the
Mm.
exodus, the war, the first generation experience. So I really wanted to tell our stories of what it was like
Yeah, no,
growing
I
up
think
among
that's definitely
American.
powerful. Now let's transition from your parents a little bit to like the toxic pattern. I really appreciate you talking about alcohol
Mhm.
abuse, alcohol addiction, or just any type of substance addictions. Talk about how that trauma, why you did that, like the numbing, and kind of just teach the
Mhm.
guests your experience because we really want to learn from.
Yeah, it's a big theme in my book. And I think the writing of the book helped me to process my relationship with alcohol over the
Mhm.
years because, you know, I said it in my letter, it really did become an abusive relationship, but it didn't start
So,
out that way. It
mm,
started out very innocent. My first drink of alcohol, probably like a lot of Hmong kids, was at a funeral. And even there's even more alcohol at
mm,
non-Christian
yes,
funerals, right?
yes.
So I was getting like a little bit of it, but it was like hard cider, you know, from my cousins.
Mm.
Like in the
Dangerous.
face of that grief of losing my grandma,
Hmm.
I suddenly was introduced to this magical
Hmm.
elixir, which made me feel funny and made me feel good as a
Right.
kid, right? Like I'm 15, but everyone's drinking. This is normal for, I believe, for many of us in Hmong
Shockingly, yeah.
communities or in, you know, communities of color, indigenous communities. It was just normal. And so as I get into college, got more involved in the queer community, you know, the bars and the clubs, it's everywhere.
It is.
If you're not like going hard on the weekends, people look at you like you're like a total weirdo, right? Like it was the norm in
Right.
both the Hmong community and the
Mhm,
queer community. And at that
mhm,
time, I wasn't even involved in the Hmong community, right? Because I'm still on the East Coast.
mhm.
But then once I moved to Minnesota, it was even more clear that alcohol is just a part of life. But it was a long journey to accept that it was an issue for me because I'm a perfectionist and because I was a community leader. How can you be a community leader and also be an alcoholic? And all the
Yes.
parties that I was with, I was drinking with other community leaders.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh my god, we're all addicts."
Right. So that's a really good question, right? Or a good statement. Like,
Mhm.
are we all addicts? Because if we've normalized alcoholism,
Mhm,
where I don't consider myself an alcoholic, I don't think I would meet the DSM like criteria,
mhm.
right? But it was a problem. My friends, thank God, like I had friends who loved me who had an intervention on me. And even when they did that, I was like, but I don't even drink that much. Like,
But you
I don't
binge
understand.
drink. Yeah, you go all
Right.
out. Yeah,
I didn't drink that much, but when I drank and when I went hard, I
yeah.
had no limits and I would black out and not remember anything. And then the next day I'd have to like, you know, go through that process of like, oh shit, like what happened?
Mhm.
What did I do? And how do I repair? And is there repair? in the damage that I have done. And that is, no pun intended, but that is the sobering moment when you have to reconcile, is this a problem? And at that time, I didn't know anyone in the Hmong community who was sober. So I didn't have anyone to go to for that. At the time, I was living in Chicago and I was going to, well, at one point I was in Chicago. I went to this church with the queer pastor and he was sober.
Mm.
And he was one of the first queer people I talked to who was sober. And he basically broke it down for me how he kind of felt the same. Like he didn't really feel like he was an alcoholic in the definition of it, but it was an issue that he had to reconcile. And so he kind of took away the stigma of that label for me of alcoholic and really helped me to look within to think about what is my relationship to alcohol and how can I be mindful about my
Mhm.
consumption.
Yeah, often the difficulties in the Hmong community, and I myself, as a Hmong man, with how much you have to drink, the culture events. You said at the funeral was the introduction. Mine was at home. I
Mhm,
was how old was I? 14. I had Smirnoff Apple, and I
mhm.
thought it was amazing. It was so
Yeah.
fun. It just kept feeding and feeding me. Everyone was laughing. We played cards, and I compare it to it's just the community and the human interaction. But the thing is, this adverse effect, this unhealthiness,
Mm.
and oftentimes I think we use alcohol to numb ourselves and or to express ourselves because we're so scared. And
Yes.
it's unhealthy. It has negatively affected the community. I've seen deaths. I've seen weight
Mhm,
gain,
mhm.
medical. And then for you, what was your point? Because I still struggle with that today. I guess a message to others, like, what would you tell others, whether it's to transform, to be the best version themselves?
In terms of their relationship with alcohol,
Correct.
I think just the first thing I would invite folks to do is just to take that step back and ask that question. What is my relationship with alcohol? And is it healthy or is it abusive? Am I in
Mhm.
control or does alcohol control me?
There we go.
And that can be a really hard question to hold. So if you don't feel like you can hold that question on your own, find people who can hold that space for you. Whether it's friends, family, an anonymous support group, like an online support group, if you don't feel comfortable talking to your friends and family, but talk to somebody, begin the conversation because there really is no shame. The only shame is living your life numb until you die. That's the shame,
That's it
right?
is the goddamn. Yeah. Yeah. So there's another challenge, Gu. This is a scenario. I'm a sober or harm reduction. I only drink one
Mhm,
drink, but I go to events. It's
mhm.
plastered. I'm exposed to countless of drink. It's like an addict going to a drugstore and getting everything.
Yeah.
So
Mhm,
how did you deal with that? Tell your story and then give us
mhm.
some advice and wisdom.
I mean, I had to distance myself. So I really don't go to clubs or bars
Mm-hmm.
anymore. If I go out maybe like once a year
Mm-hmm.
to dance because I love dancing. But if you've ever been to a bar or club where everyone's drunk and you're the only sober one, it will make you not want to go clubbing.
But you don't want to go. You can actually see it.
It's so different when
Yeah.
you're sober. So that's kind of jarring. It kind of wakes you up a little bit. And then the other thing is when I do have to go or when I'm in social situations like Hmong events, I have my script now. I know how to decline
What do you say?
alcohol. I know the pressure. I know the script that Hmong men have, you know?
個月全學啊，不如佢癲啊 and so
Yeah.
forth.
So I know every rebuttal. I know that conversation inside and out, especially if they're drunk, which they usually
Mhm.
are. But I have been in many situations where Hmong men wanted to physically fight me because either because I'm not drinking or because I'm gay or because of whatever. And
Mm,
I know how to de escalate that.
ridiculous. Right.
It doesn't always get there. But the interesting thing is sometimes when men see how that I will not give in, they actually respect me for that. And then they usually will come and talk to me later about alcohol
Wow. There we
and
go.
how they want to quit, but they don't know how.
They don't know how. Yeah. I think you're creating space for yourself, and then you're creating
Hmm.
space for others. And I appreciate one thing as a social worker. I teach clients it's the a new identity. It's like what your new
Hmm.
identity is. You know, if you're a person who
Hmm.
reads, you have books on you. If you're a person who doesn't
Yes.
drink, you tell people and you act accordingly. So I think that's very
Hmm.
powerful. Bruce, anything else on alcohol? I want to transition us a little to your queer experience, lived
Yeah.
experience. So I think it's always empowering. I think for me as a young kid, growing up in our heterosexual, which is what people believe relationship is only between men and women, which is false.
Hmm.
But growing up in our patriarchal society, I saw that men loving men, a woman loving woman, or transgender and so forth is a taboo. You know, other the people, and then we shun them, we shame them, we make them embarrassed, we hide them. Talk a little bit about your experience growing up queer, whether in the Hmong community or East Coast,
Hmm.
and share us the human aspects of that.
Yeah. Well, because I grew up on the East Coast, having really no Hmong community, when I realized I was different, I didn't know what it was. I mean,
Hmm.
I think people try to figure out where they fall in that spectrum. And so I identified in my earlier years as bisexual as I kind of figured out, do I like guys or girls more? And I dated both. But I will always remember that one day I came home and there was a copy of, I think it was like back in the day, like the Hmong Times or Hmong Tribune. It was one of those Hmong newspapers because my cousin ran it. So he would send us copies from California, from Minnesota, and they had published an article from Sanglor uh, on, like, it might have been the cover of the newspaper, and he came out, and we were the same age. We were about 16, maybe
Mm,
17. And I was shocked because I thought I was the only queer Hmong boy in the world. I truly did. That's how alone I felt.
mm,
And that's how dark it felt. And it felt like,
very.
especially growing up in a very conservative
Hmm.
Christian Hmong CMA church in a very conservative part of the country, um, I was brainwashed, programmed, and I truly believed I was going to hell.
Mm,
And I truly believed that God hated me. And so I hated myself.
mm,
And so everything I did, everything I did to everything I did was to mask that part of me that I wanted nobody to see because I believed that everyone would disown me
mm,
and that I would be alone and then I would just die and go to hell. Because that's exactly what I was taught by Hmong people, by Hmong pastors, by my parents, and by people that were supposed to love me.
mm,
And so it was a lifeline when I saw that article and when Same came out. And then, a few years later, I turned 18 and I flew to Minnesota to
mm.
meet the Soy Boys. Shades of Yellow, Soy was the first Hmong organization for LGBTQ
That's right.
established in the world. And it was right there in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I flew from the East Coast to meet other queer people. And that's the first time I saw
Hmm.
community. And it changed my life.
Wow. It made you feel like you belong, made you feel relatable, and also made you
Hmm.
challenge your whole paradigm of what you were taught too as
Yes.
well. What message you told us finding community, processing that, but what if someone today is going through that? What would you tell them?
That they feel like they're alone? Is that what
Mhm.
you're saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
That they
Well,
feel they're alone.
that's why I wrote my letter to my younger self. And I want that letter to go to anybody who feels that way,
Hmm.
who feels like they're alone, that they're not worthy of love or to be loved, that God does not love them, that their parents don't love them, that it's a lie. And that's why I said that piece in my letter about meditation also saved me because meditation helped me to hear the voice of truth, which was that
Hmm.
everything the church taught me was a lie. Not just the gay part, a
Yep.
lot of it is a
A lot
lie.
of it. Yeah.
And I know I'm going to get shit about that. I don't fucking care. It's the truth. And the lies that the church is telling people are killing us. So I don't care how many people get upset about me. I don't
You
want
say it.
my Hmong queer family to die anymore. That's why I'm speaking out.
Speak the truth. Yeah. I have lost my closest friend, died because he wanted to be a pastor, Pentecostal, and was
Mm,
addicted to drugs and hard drugs and OD'd because he wasn't accepted in the community. And
mm,
we will talk about suicide, harming yourself, and just isolating yourself. And we don't want that from our
mhm.
brothers and sisters who are Hmong, because we are in a prosperous nation and this is the time
Yes.
and we have the ability to do it. And I think a lot about racism too as well, how this is a form of control, and then
Yes.
being homophobic, which is hating people who are queer, it is a form of control. People are scared of change.
Mhm,
People are scared of that. So thank you, Kou, for empowering us and challenging the system.
mhm.
Yeah. So anything else on being queer about your experience in the past?
I think I just want to name that, in my healing work now, one of the things that I have been doing is hosting these healing circles for queer Hmong folks. And I did one in Minnesota in partnership with Transforming Generations, where I helped lead a meditation to connect people to our queer Hmong ancestors, because we never hear stories about queer Hmong ancestors, but they definitely existed. Even when I talk to elders who are straight, they will tell me there was this person in the village who lived alone and never married, and maybe I understand why now.
Mm,
Or there was these two friends and they were really good friends. Like, we have always existed and we have always been here and we're not going anywhere.
mm,
But now we have an opportunity to really embrace love
very
and
slow.
pride
Mm-hmm.
in who we are. And I want us, especially, our generation, our future generations, to never forget that we have always had queer ancestors
Yeah.
and that we are also queer ancestors for future generations.
That's right. And then for folks who don't know, Native Americans, they call it two spirits. So it's
Hmm.
been
Hmm.
ongoing on for generations. So thank you for sharing that, Gul. I think it's very empowering. It gave me chills just talking about this because it's our human experience and it's very empowering. So if we can
Hmm.
get through this, we can get through not being imprisoned by ourselves. So thank you for sharing. I want to hear a bit more about your professional experience,
Hmm.
kind of like why you became a social worker, why you went to the health field, social justice advocacy, public policy, and why you are such a grinder. You have so many fellows.
Yeah, well, from a young age, people always came to me with issues, problems, friends, family members, cousins. And, I was a kid and we were talking about rape and sexual assault and drugs and alcohol and gangs. Because for us as kids growing up in the 80s and 90s, that's what we faced. And that's on the East Coast, right? I wasn't even in Fresno or St. Paul, but like, those issues didn't stop at bare borders or states, right? And that was back in the day. I don't, I don't know if they even still do this, but like back in the day, um, they would send the bad kids to the countryside to live with
Mm,
your cousins. So like we were in the country, so all the bad kids was sent here.
man, okay.
And then like I
You
would
look.
make friends with all of them.
I'm
And,
glad you didn't
like,
get bad too. That's pretty funny.
well, you can read the book.
Questionable.
Read the book
We'll
for
check
that.
it. Exactly.
But I kind of, it was kind of like what I was saying about being queer. I had
Yeah.
so many masks and identities that I switched to
Mhm.
survive.
Right.
So in one circle, I was a Mignolai. In one circle, I was like 4.0 GPA. In one circle, I
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
I was everything, church
Yeah.
leader. So
Must be
people
exhausting at
always
that time.
just,
Yeah, sorry. Keep going. Yeah.
I never thought it was.
Mm,
I loved talking to people.
mm,
I loved holding space for people, and it was very easy for me.
mhm,
People just always told me about their trauma and their life stories since I was a kid. So I was like, well, I should probably learn how to like help people.
mhm.
So
Hey, kid.
that's why I majored in psychology. That led to social work, and then that led to nonprofit, government, philanthropy. I have had many careers, I have made many pivots. And, you mentioned fellowships. I know, I feel like I'm this like weird, like fellowship whisperer because
Yeah.
I get a lot of fellowships.
Yes, you do. I was like, this every 2 years.
But it's because like fellowships are designed to help you break into an industry.
Hmm.
So when I was going into nonprofit and then going in, well, of course, first in school, I figured out how to get scholarships and fellowships because I loved writing, and writing
Mhm.
helped me to get fellowships. But in order to write, you need to understand your story.
Right.
So I had to master understanding my story and then leverage that to move into these different sectors. So I did that for nonprofit. I did that for philanthropy, um, it's just always been a way for me to pivot, understand an industry, understand how that sector worked, and then how to climb.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I think that's powerful. I think what you teach us is just a lifelong continual learner. I have friends who say they could be
mhm,
in school for the rest of their life, they would. I also see this as leveling up. So I think we have opportunities here. One thing I see why the white community does so well because the system is built for them. They built it,
mhm,
so it's going to benefit them
yeah.
financially, educationally, from private
Mhm,
schools to tax and so forth. So part of this podcast goal is I want to just teach you the tools and resources are here. And then we
mhm,
want to show everyday Hmong people, like you're doing fellowship, you're one of the few who does it from Bush Fellow and so forth. And for the listeners, if you have kids or young kids, this is how you level up. This is how you get connection. This is how you create relationships because almost always the jobs you want, it's because of someone you know. And that's how you do
yes.
this. So thank you for
Mhm.
that. Any other encouragement for continual lifelong learners or why it's important to the next generation?
I would say constantly read. Like, that's such a huge part of learning for me, just reading books from as many different authors as I can across the areas that I want to learn. Documentaries, travel. I love travel, and that's the best way I learn. Going to these places around the world and seeing it for myself. And I'm actually planning to launch some offerings this year around helping people to tell their story, specifically like if they're applying for fellowships or want
Mhm.
a career pivot. I want to help teach people how I've done it.
Yeah, I think that'd be powerful. We would love to hear about that. Let us know.
Hmm.
Offer some virtual ones too, so other people can join.
Yes,
But we're
it'll
looking
be
forward to that.
virtual.
Nice, nice. Well, that's wonderful, Gu. Thank you for sharing about your past. Is there anything about a past that you felt is instrumental? Whether a happy moment in your childhood, because we talk about a lot about some intense stuff. Any happy moment that helped shape you, or anything you want to share to the guests to kind of us get to know you?
Hmm. I think I want to just say two things. I think one is the role of food. I think for Hmong people, Asians, like food is so critical for us. Of course, we hear how we don't say I love you, we say have you eaten across so many Asian cultures. And I think that is very true from my childhood. My parents were always working. They were never home, but we always had fresh cooked food on the table from my mom. That's how she showed us love. And that's a big part of how I show love now. So I just wanted to name that. And then I also want to just name the friendships and mentors from a young age. Friends were the ones who helped me to get through all of this. If I didn't have close friends, mostly like a lot of really close girlfriends,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have gotten through my younger days.
Yeah. All right, Gu. So I love that you have written books and you're putting essays out and so forth. There's an essay you
Hmm.
sent me prior to the podcast, and it was
Hmm.
very insightful. And I got a chance to learn more about the history of our Hmong people, especially Toga, Macho Bada, Kotocho,
Hmm.
which is what we call in English sleep paralysis. So lots of insight, but I would love you to tell the guests kind of like why you wrote the essay, the history
Hmm.
behind it, and how it really relates to us as Hmong people and pop culture.
Yeah. So I did recently finish my memoir. It's an essay collection for folks who aren't familiar. It's basically just, it's not a start to finish traditional narrative. And so I had each essay represent a different theme. So there's essays about alcohol, about religion, and the essay you're referring to is specifically about SUNDS, sudden unexpected nocturnal death syndrome. And I had heard rumors back in the day that Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven, it was based on SUNDS, but that's all you really hear. You only hear that headline. And whenever I heard about it in conversation in the community, it was always positive. People were like, that's so cool that people know us, that our story is getting out there. And to be honest, I've never actually watched the movie because I hate horror movies. So
So scary. Yeah.
I didn't even know I was going to write this essay.
Mm-hmm.
But the more digging I did and the more research I did, because I have an academic public health background, I was going through like rigorous research in journals about heart abnormalities. And I had to sift through like centuries of genetic research
Mm-hmm.
versus like environmental factors. And so the more research I did and analysis, and then looking at the LA Times, and there was like over almost 10 articles just about Hmong sons' deaths in the 80s and 90s. And, you know, at that time, I was just born, so I didn't have that context. But the more digging I did, the more I was putting the pieces together, and I realized, hold up, we should not be excited
Here we go.
that this white dude created a demon from our story, because it's actually the demon that killed us. So let's talk about what really happened.
Tell him.
And let's talk about who the monsters really are here. And so, like, this essay, it took me so many years to write, so many tears, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. And there was nights where I did feel the ancestors coming to me and crying and asking me, like, help us solve this mystery. And that's why I had to write this piece. And I'm just hoping that one day it can be published and everyone can read it.
Yeah, I think it's very important. You gave me so much history, so much knowledge, so it just informs me a lot, and it shows us to have our experience is also hard too. And I was reading, it was like whitewash. You were talking about how it was whitewash, and they use our pain for this capitalist society, and how our stories is not fully told. So, talk about the individuals. Who are mostly the individuals who suffer from this, who experience this, are among brothers and sisters who passed away from this. Oh.
You know, I think it's very difficult to talk about that because culturally, we don't talk about it. If you came from a family, I don't personally know any families who had a death from SUNDS in the 90s, the 80s or 90s. If I do, they've never told me because there's so much shame, right? Of course, there were likely no autopsies, so they don't exactly know what it was. But you just want to kind of put the past behind, especially if you think it's about a curse. You don't want to talk about it. So it's another layer of silence. After the war, even coming here, there's another layer of silence because you can't grieve. You cannot grieve somebody who dies from a mysterious illness. And if the medical world and the CDC is saying, yeah, we don't know why this is happening, but good luck. Like, there's just so many layers of silence and secrecy around this story that when I went into the LA Times and I pulled the archives and I saw that they had the details of the names, the people, the families, the cities, that's when I was like, I have to connect these dots and I have to tell the story because there is a full story here that was hidden. And I want those who lost loved ones from SUNDS to be able to see themselves and to know that they were not alone.
That's right, brother.
In their grief from such tragic mysteries. And I don't know if it's still happening or not because we stopped tracking it. But I have had close friends who died in the middle of the night from a heart attack who were young and healthy in their 30s. And so if this is still happening, is there a way for us to create a conversation around this that is centered on healing and not on the darkness of it? That's really one of my hopes. I hope that this essay opens up a conversation for healing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for the vulnerability. Thank you for shedding the tears for those who we lost. I really felt it too as well. I think we don't want to, what is it called when they do documentaries on serial killers? We fantasize the serial killer. We don't
Yes.
think about the family, the pain, the suffering.
Yes.
And I appreciate you bringing up capitalism. Kou, I want to read what you said in your essay. I'm not sure this is the right essay, but when you're reading, it made me the right section of the essay. And you said, I now realize that the night terrors that haunted my childhood revealed my greatest fears. I was afraid I would always be alone, afraid my voice would never be heard, no matter how shrill I scream, afraid I would die in my sleep in the black abyss of internal silence and that no one was coming to save me. Wow. That
Mhm.
was so powerful. That was so dark. And it kind of reminds me of just like going to death and the fear of being alone.
Mhm.
And you said, but the truth is I'm not alone. Talk about that more in the collective healing you just mentioned.
It took me a long time to get there. And originally, I ended the essay in a different way. And luckily, I have a writing group. I have people that I get feedback on. And the feedback they gave me was that, because I was like, how do you feel after you read this? And everyone said they were angry. And I was like, good. I want people to be angry. But as I thought about it more, it was like, anger is actually only the beginning. We do need to be angry, but anger isn't the purpose. Anger has to point us somewhere, right? And so that led me to collective grief,
Mm-hmm.
which is required for collective healing. And so my whole book is about collective healing. I use my story as examples of how I have tried to heal myself.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I want to have this conversation with our entire community to say, what does collective healing look like for us? Because I'm not the only one who has had nightmares. Even though I was born in America and I didn't know anything about the war, why did I still have night terrors as a
Mm-hmm.
child about dying? And I want us to have a conversation about that as a community, not just the Hmong community, but for the world. Like, why the fuck are we at war again? Like,
That's goddamn truth.
and I have an essay in my book about war and about the military industrial complex, but we know that war is only for power and money for very
Oh,
few,
money. Yep.
and that system is ending very soon. But it will never end until we can begin having these conversations about collective healing and collective grief to understand our collective power. But I want people to read my stories and my book to understand what has happened to the Hmong people so that we never repeat the horrors of war again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. Thank you for sharing the experience with SUDS, which is, could you repeat again? Sudden.
Sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome.
Yes, yes. So,
Mhm.
no, anything else on it? I think just sharing your story is just powerful and insightful. Thank you for educating us on how it was whitewashed and used for capitalism into pop culture. We are more than that, and our stories matters
Mm.
and the collective healing. Thank you for sharing, Kou. So, with all your research and the work that you've done, public policy, social worker, psychology, and the healing, want to help others, Kou, you started your own I guess your own passion, and you called it Cosmic Kou, and I really appreciate the spiritual components that you focus on it. You share a lot of your stories. You're very vulnerable. That's one of the reasons why I wanted you on the podcast so we can talk about our own healing. Talk about what it Cosmic Kou is.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I've had a lot of career pivots, and the most recent one I've taken is, I've left the nonprofit sector, the corporate sector, and I have been focusing full time on my writing and on my new business, which is Cosmic Kou, which is how I refer to myself in terms of like the healing work that I
Mhm,
do. It's really been a 10-year journey to understand what it means for me to be a shaman. Growing up Christian and not having any clue what traditional shamanism looks like in the
yeah,
Hmong
right.
community, I had to figure out my own thing. And I know what that is now. And it's really building on my career of organizing policy work, philanthropy, systems change, and empowering and coaching leaders and mentorship. I love mentorship. I have benefited so much from
Mhm,
mentors, and I have been very proud to mentor and pass that on to others. Like, I believe we should always be pulling others up behind us
mhm.
as the ones up before us pull us up, you
That's
know?
right. That's right.
The only way that I could be truly authentic to myself is to combine my personal, professional, spiritual, and creative gifts together. And that is how I created Cosmic Kou. Do one-on-one coaching, I do retreats, and eventually I want to be hosting retreats in Southeast Asia to bring Hmong diaspora back, to connect with the land, to connect with the ancestors, and experience collective healing in that way. We're in a time in the world where we are seeing the rupture of the old systems of control, of greed, of racism, of patriarchy. It's all crumbling. And the harder we see the monsters fight for power, it should be a clear indicator to us that they also know their system is crumbling.
They also know.
And so what I want to do now is help our communities to dream and design the new systems that will replace the crumbling infrastructure, because we have to do that or we're going to repeat the same shit over and over again.
Goddamn true.
So that's really how I see my role right now, as a catalyst, as a truth teller. I'm ready to burn shit down, and I'm also ready to light the match. Like, whatever people need me to do, you know,
kick
like,
some butt. Yeah. Because civil rights didn't thought exactly the same way. We had to fight for our rights. We have to push for it. It reminds me, I think of, I'm fucking sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I think you're just disrupting the control from this system. And I love that, Kou. So a little bit more future thinking. I know that's what you want to do. You want to help people. I guess that's what you're doing presently. How do you want Cosmic Kou to live in the future? What do you envision?
I would love to have a full menu of offerings for people virtually and in person. I really want to be in community. I want to be traveling to different cities and countries and meeting with people, holding space for people, and just helping to reactivate the light in people and in communities and in families, because I truly feel that this global change that we're going through has to start with ourselves, our own healing rippling out to our loved ones, to our communities. Like, that's how we're going to change the world, through these small ripples.
Kou, can you tell us what your identities are and why they are important to you?
Some of the main identities for me are queer, Hmong American, shaman, a writer, and a creative.
We're heading towards the future. What wisdom would you share to folks?
Yeah, it's such a big and such an important question. I think what I would start with is that we know more than we think we know. Our body knows a lot, but this world teaches us to ignore our body and to deny the body and to put the body last for capitalism, of course, so that we can produce, but also Hmong culture, right? Like, there's no boundaries with families, right? Like, I talk about a lot, like my parents, like the process of trying to have boundaries with your Hmong parents is like,
I brought you to this earth.
Yes. So even things like that, right? Like the things that we are taught and the ways that we're meant to we're taught to put ourselves last, to ignore our bodies, ignore our pain, and just hustle and grind to achieve the American dream. But that shit doesn't work anymore. Like, and I've spent my whole life doing it. 3 careers worth of doing it. So hear me when I tell you, the reader, the viewer, like, that shit don't work. I don't know if you can curse on your podcast, but the world is changing. The paradigms are changing. Everyone is waking up. Are you waking up? And it can be as simple as saying, what is my body telling me today? And am I going to listen to it? Start there. That's
Wonderful.
what I would say.
I think your story exemplifies that. So I always love to ask guests the future prompt questions, like aspirations. Just to explain to the guests, aspiration is a strong desire, longing, or aim. Intellectual aspiration, it also means craving, yearning, a goal or object that is strongly desired. For example, the presidency has always been her aspiration since childhood. Kou, I want to ask you some future prompts. Can you finish the sentence? I'm going to start with the 3 first, and I'll have 2 more afterwards, okay? So I want to ask you, I want, I desire, I yearn. Can you finish those sentences?
I want peace. I want inner peace within my heart, and I want peace to be the foundation for my life and how I move through the world. in the actions that I take and the decisions that I make.
Next one. I will be, I aim for.
I will be. Is that? I will be. I aim for. I will be the first queer Hmong author to publish a memoir in the world, and I hope my community is proud of my art that I put into the world.
Wonderful, Kou. Thank you for that. I want you to continue to impart your advice and inspiration to the next generation. You've done that already, Kou. If someone wanted to follow in your footsteps of spiritual healing, shaman, mental health, the helping field, or advocacy, public policy, what would you encourage them, whether it's mindset or steps or networking, to help get to where you're at?
The first thing I would say is to go within, because the more you can go within to do deep reflection work, whether that is through retreats or a silent meditation, through a spiritual practice, it will help you to differentiate what is an outside voice telling me I should do X, Y, and Z, and what is my true self telling me I need to be doing. And that learning that distinction takes a lot of time and practice, but it is necessary if you want to be an authentic leader.
Yeah.
So I would start
Yes,
there.
I think that's powerful, Kou. Can you share? You have a lot of wealth of knowledge, a lot of inspiring attributes, Kou. So we appreciate you sharing your experience. You have a lot of virtues, values, and principles. Can you share us a quote that kind of inspires you or exemplifies who you are?
One of the things that I have been repeating to myself every day, I'll share, and then I'll share a little bit about why. What I have been repeating to myself is
Hmm.
I find peace in the present, comfort in the quiet, and comfort in the calm. Because I've had to reprogram my mind to believe that. Because as somebody who for most of my life had like high functioning depression and anxiety and was always worried about the future, like I always had a 20-year plan. And I felt like I had to, because my parents were telling
It's a
me,
lot of
this is what
pressure,
you need to
man.
build for us. Because we sacrificed, because we almost died, you have to do this for us. And so I was always living in the future. But when you live in the future, you're not present at all. And that was most of my life. And so it really wasn't until I started mindfulness and meditation and my healing, my inner healing, that I realized I have to be
That's right.
so laser focused on the now, because what's happening now will never happen again. And I may miss it. Like I may miss my niece's baby who was just born learning how to see the world. And if I'm thinking about what's going to happen next year or 5 years from now, like I can't be present with this miracle of life. Like a very small
That's right.
example for me, but I have to remind myself to be right here. I have my goals, I have my vision, but every day I have to decide, what am I going to do today to anchor myself
Hmm.
in my present reality, to have gratitude for this moment, to find peace in this moment, even if it's not perfect, but trusting that what I do today will get me to that place that I'm going tomorrow.
Kou, I think people would like to know on how to reach you, to get your services.
Yes.
How can they reach you? Tell us about anything upcoming, we can help support you.
Yeah. The best way is my website, which is just my name, koutao.com. And from there's links to all my socials, my Instagram, my Facebook. I will be launching a Substack very soon, which is for me kind of like the Zanga live journal days back in the day of journaling. So I'll be sharing more of my writing on Substack. Then the publishing process takes a long time. My book may not be out for, a little bit, but I am definitely going to continue sharing my writing So my website will have all that. And then I will be offering some workshops, classes very soon.
No, I think it's great. Let us know. We'll share it on the Let Us In My podcast. Looking forward to you just growing, teaching, impacting the community and yourself. So thank you. So cool. I'm just gonna read a little bit, just closing us out. Cool. Again, I appreciate you just sharing your vulnerabilities. I think sharing your experience and challenging your system and sometimes saying, fuck that system. I think it's very empowering because the things that we know how it enslaves us and makes us lead towards addiction and toxic patterns. I think you are a walking light of what you preach. And thank you for shining the light on us and shining the light on these traumas or these stories that we haven't heard. And this is like the essence of this podcast is because to capture these stories and to share it to the next generation because we don't have lived experience as you who's being born in America and your age, whether it's refugee, immigrant. So thank you for being on the podcast. I honor all your stories. To the guests, we continue to invite you all to become active participants in the community by sharing your own stories and connecting with others. The Let Us To My podcast goal is to create lasting impact through storytelling, revitalizing letter writing, and inspiring the next generation. I always like to leave you all with quotes. Vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weakness. Feel free to give us a 5-star rating. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Reach out to Kou, message him through his Instagram and website. He'll respond back. And lastly, I just want to leave us quote with the next generation because it's important. Just like you said, mentors help you, Kou. Mentors help me as well. And we want to do that and pull up the next generation. And our children are the greatest hope we have, and the future belongs to them. Kou, any last words?
I'm so grateful for you. I want to thank you for the invitation to be here, for the conversation. It really was helpful for me as well to process all of this. And thank you so much.
Thank you for joining. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on Letters to My Podcast inaugural Season 1. We hope you can hear the power of storytelling, vulnerability, and self-expression rooted in the Hmong tradition. Let's continue to bridge the digital divide. I am Sai's niece. My name is Emma, and he is my uncle. He has helped me become more confident and made me come out of my comfort zone. I remember one day he took us nieces out to Dairy Queen. We decided to race back to the car, but my sister ran too fast and slipped under the car. It was memorable because it was funny, and those moments are something I would cherish forever. Letters to My Podcast is where vulnerability meets self-discovery. Self-discovery meets writing. Journaling, writing letters, or handwriting isn't just about writing what is on your mind or reliving your experiences. It is a medium for self-expression and self-reflection. Take a pause and time to think. For Sai, it began with journaling in college, a practice that became a lifeline. He poured his fears, failures, successes, self-doubt, and inspiring quotes on index cards. At one point, he had over 300 index cards in a shoebox. Writing helped him discover a powerful path to self-awareness, increasing his mental well-being and assisting in processing his emotions. As a social worker, a pen and paper were his constant companion, helping him process interactions and to not miss anything important. Sai has benefited from the power of writing and wants to revitalize this practice and share it with you all. A little bit more about my uncle, who is the host. Sai, he, him, his, is a first-generation Hmong American man, social worker, and community organizer with over 12 years of experience. Sai is diagnosed with ADHD. He is passionate about building community through storytelling, self-expression, and the importance of affinity with their human counterpart. Sai believes each generation builds upon the next and seeks to uplift the next generation. One quote that embodies Letters to My Podcast. Our children are the greatest hope we have. The future belongs to them. Nelson Mandela, South African revolutionary. Letters to My podcast focuses on passing wisdom and uplifting the next generation. It is our turn to pass the torch of wisdom and leave the world a better place than we found it. Let us impart our hopes, dreams, and future to the next generation. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and give a 5-star rating to help with the algorithm. Letters to My podcast is on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Blue Sky, and Instagram. Disclaimer: Tsai Ying, LMSW, is not establishing a therapist-client relationship with listeners through this podcast, and any reliance on the content is at your own risk. The views expressed in this podcast are Tsai Ying's personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect the views of their employer or licensing board. For any mental health concerns or questions, please seek guidance from a licensed mental health professional or call or text the National Suicide Hotline 988. Thanks for listening to Letters That Speak, Stories That Heal. Tsai's niece Emma, outro done. Oh, ciao.